A 20-gram bird with a brain smaller than your thumbnail is running a quantum computer in its eyeball at room temperature, while our best quantum machines need to be colder than deep space to work. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how evolution accidentally built the world's most sophisticated quantum sensor, why it took physicists 40 years to believe it was real, and what this means for the future of quantum technology. Every autumn, European robins fly up to 3,000 miles from Scandinavia to the Mediterranean. They navigate at night, through clouds, across featureless oceans, and they almost never get lost. For decades, scientists assumed these birds were following the stars, or memorizing landmarks, or maybe smelling their way home. But none of those explanations held up. Robins navigate perfectly on overcast nights. They find their way across terrain they've never seen. And when researchers put them in sealed containers with no visual cues whatsoever, they still knew which way was south. Something else was guiding them. Something invisible. Something we couldn't even measure. Hard cut. Here's the problem that should have made this impossible. Earth's magnetic field is pathetically weak. We're talking about 50 microteslas. That's roughly 100 times weaker than a magnet holding your grocery list to your refrigerator. Your compass can barely detect it. Your phone needs sophisticated sensors and constant calibration. The magnetic field at Earth's surface is so faint that it shouldn't be biologically useful at all. And yet, robins don't just detect this whisper of magnetism. They see it. According to Henrik Moritzen at the University of Oldenburg, birds likely perceive magnetic fields as visual patterns overlaid on everything they see. Imagine if north appeared as a faint glow on the horizon, or magnetic field lines showed up as subtle shadows across the sky. That's not a metaphor. That may be what robins actually experience. But here's where it gets strange. Here's where physics said, this shouldn't work. The sensor that makes this possible is a protein called Cryptochrome 4. It sits in specialized cells in the robin's retina. And when blue light, specifically around 450 nanometers, hits this protein, it triggers something that sounds like it belongs in a physics lab, not a bird's eye. A single photon knocks an electron loose. That electron jumps to a nearby molecule, creating what physicists call a radical pair. Two molecules, each with an unpaired electron. And here's the quantum part. Those two electrons become entangled. Their spins are correlated. Measuring one instantly tells you about the other, no matter how far apart they drift. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance because he didn't believe it could be real. But it is real, and a bird is using it to navigate. Now, here's what should blow your mind. IBM's quantum computer needs to operate at 15 millikelvin. That's 0.015 degrees above absolute zero. Colder than outer space. Colder than anywhere in the known universe. Why? Because quantum effects are fragile. Heat creates vibrations. Vibrations destroy the delicate correlations that make quantum computing work. The technical term is decoherence. The environment basically shakes your quantum system apart. And yet, the robin's eye maintains quantum coherence at 40 degrees Celsius. Body temperature, while the bird is flying, while its heart is pounding at 600 beats per minute, while wind and weather and 1,000 other disturbances should destroy any quantum effect instantly. A 2011 study in Physical Review Letters calculated that quantum coherence in the bird's magnetic sensor could last up to 100 microseconds. That doesn't sound like much, but in quantum terms, at room temperature in a living biological system, that's an eternity. That's longer than many lab-created quantum systems can maintain coherence even at near absolute zero. Pattern interrupt. Let me tell you about Klaus Schulten. In 1978, this theoretical physicist published a paper proposing that birds might navigate using quantum mechanics. Specifically, he suggested that radical pairs in the eye could be sensitive to magnetic fields. The scientific community's response? Skepticism, dismissal, some polite ignoring. Quantum effects in warm, wet biological systems? Impossible. Everyone knew quantum coherence required extreme cold and isolation. Life was too messy, too chaotic, too hot for quantum mechanics to play any meaningful role. Schulten spent decades refining his theory. Most physicists spent decades not reading it. Then, in 2000, a team led by Torsten Ritz published detailed biophysical models showing exactly how the radical pair mechanism could work. Still theoretical, still no direct proof. But the math was getting harder to ignore. Here's the mechanism. When those entangled electrons form a radical pair, they can exist in two different spin configurations, singlet state or triplet state. Earth's magnetic field, weak as it is, influences how these spin states evolve over time. The ratio of singlet to triplet states changes depending on the angle of the magnetic field. Different angles produce different chemical products. Different products send different signals to the brain. The bird isn't measuring the field directly. It's reading the chemical aftermath of a quantum process. That signal travels to a specific brain region called cluster N, identified by researchers in 2009. When they lesioned this area in migratory birds, the birds could still see normally, but their magnetic compass was destroyed. Proof that whatever was happening, the brain had dedicated hardware to process it. But the definitive evidence came in 2021. A team including researchers from Oxford and Oldenburg extracted Cryptochrome, 4 proteins, directly from European robins. They purified them. They put them in a test tube, and they showed conclusively that these proteins are magnetically sensitive. Not in the bird, not in cells, in isolated molecules, in laboratory conditions. The protein itself responds to magnetic fields exactly as the quantum theory predicted. 43 years after Klaus Schulten's proposal, the evidence had caught up. There's one more twist that makes this even more elegant. The robin's compass doesn't tell it north versus south. It tells it the angle of magnetic field lines relative to gravity. It's an inclination compass. At the equator, magnetic field lines are horizontal. Near the poles, they dive steeply into the ground. The bird senses this angle and knows. That direction leads toward the pole. That direction leads toward the equator. This is actually more useful than a simple north-south compass for long-distance navigation. And here's the most striking confirmation of the quantum mechanism. In 2014, researchers showed that weak radio frequency fields, the kind emitted by electronics in the megahertz range, completely disrupt bird navigation. This effect makes no sense if the birds were using any classical magnetic sensor. Magnetite, iron deposits, any physical compass wouldn't care about radio frequencies. But radical pairs, quantum spin states, they're exquisitely sensitive to exactly these frequencies. The quantum theory predicted this vulnerability. The experiments confirmed it. Our wireless world may literally be jamming bird navigation. Payoff. So here's what we're left with. Evolution, through nothing but random mutation and natural selection, built a quantum sensor that outperforms our most sophisticated technology. It operates at body temperature. It's powered by light. It's integrated directly into the visual system. And it's been guiding birds across hemispheres for millions of years. We spent billions of dollars building quantum computers that need to be colder than space itself. A bird grew one in its eye without trying. This isn't just a curiosity about birds. It's a challenge to everything we thought we knew about the boundary between quantum physics and biology. If evolution can maintain quantum coherence in a warm, wet, chaotic system, what else might be possible? What other quantum effects are hiding in plain sight, in photosynthesis, in enzyme reactions in your own neurons? The quantum world isn't just something that happens in labs and particle accelerators. It's been flying over your head every spring and fall, wrapped in feathers, navigating by mysteries we're only beginning to understand. If you want to see where else quantum biology is rewriting the rules of life, subscribe now, because next week, we're looking at how plants might be using quantum mechanics to capture sunlight with near-perfect efficiency. The quantum revolution isn't coming. It's been here for millions of years. We just didn't know where to look.